Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to play around with Random Starship. So earlier today I have updated it to version 1.9.5. So we have reverted back to using the horizontal UI layout, and while this is switching between the tabs or the sections is affected by the operator speed, it's not as uh, annoying as using the vertical layout. So it's much more serviceable or manageable. And the wing section, the large and the small, still uses the new format for 4.2 plus version. Now this is not affected by the operator speed. If you are, however, using 4.2 or below, it will be using the old format, and that is affected by the toggling those collapse arrows is affected by the operator speed, because this has an error uh, up until 4.2 plus, whereas where it will not display correctly. You collapse it, and then when you move the viewport, then you open it, collapse, or if this is collapsed or open, collapsed or closed, you can no longer it will no longer um, react when you click on it in 4.2 Blender 4.2 and below. So there's an error with that. That's why if you download the add-on and you are using 4.2 and below, this will look different right here. Okay, let's just delete this, and I've also added two new presets, and that is the 2 hull and 4 hull. So this is quite fun to use. So we have the 12 hull, just basically 12 hulls, or when we go to the hull section is 12. So let's use the 2 hull. So this is only like two cube extrusions, and we're going to play around with this. So smoothing is going to be, hull smooth is 1, and smoothing is 0.5. Subdivision smoothing is 0.5, and the vertex smoothing. So this subdivision level 2, which subdivides the mesh, it has its own smoothing parameter. So this is the subdivision smoothing, and the hull smooth is a separate vertex smoothing, separate from the subdivision smoothing. So if this is 0, you can see the effect of the subdivision smoothing. It kind of fattens up the mesh and also smooths out the vertices. While hull smooth is vertex smoothing. This doesn't bloat up the mesh, but just smooths it. So 0.25 here, and we can play around with this. So since the horizontal layout is affected by the speed of the operator, do not play around with, excuse me, do not play around with so this is the hull seed is the uh, overall control of all the seed values. So this is the overall control here. And do not play around with this for when using higher subdivision, because it will be essentially be slower because of the subdivision involved. So if you're playing around with the bigger shapes, try and use lower subdivision like 1. And for example, when you find the shape that you like, or primary shape, or the big shape that you like, then you can increase the subdivision. And then, so increasing the subdivision creates more of the paneling or the plating. So once you have fixed on your subdivision number, go to plating and then play around with this value. So size smaller means more detail, and more the details, the surface is more busy with detail. So we have adjacent faces clear, has more rest areas, while fill is a lot busier with the detail. So let's play around with the whole section. Probably somewhere around 2. Look at the shapes. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So everything about this is randomized, and nothing is really. It's not using pre-made parts. Oh, this looks good. So you can try turning off the symmetry. So in settings, this is actually mirrored in the z-axis. You can try and disable that. You can flip the z. Oh, it doesn't do it. To okay, mirror and then flip. Okay, you can flip the z-axis when you have the mirror on. And there's a lot of really interesting shape. So actually, we're going to mess around with the actual transform. So this is using scaling or increased scaling on the z-axis. And we're going to move it a bit. So when you move it, it goes beyond the symmetry line. And that's where you can create those twin hulls. Okay. And then probably use 3 hull section with the setting some more. Let's go back to plating and set this to 4 with offset off. So when using even offset on, the scaling of the depth is straight, while off is more kind of like fattening the mesh, but it's the more you increase the value, the more bloated it seems compared to even offset, which is of course much straighter. But if you see spiking, then you have to turn the even offset off to get rid of it. Okay, play around. So in the user preferences of the add-on, you can set it to using the confirm type. This will be docked here, and it will no longer disappear. But if you're using what I'm using, which is the live version, you can just you can bring the oh, this looks good. You can bring back the redo panel using the F9 hotkey, as long as you don't overlap it with another function and delete the redo panel entirely from the undo history. This also looks good. Let's try and mess around with the front back. So front back is actually so this is front and this is back, bridge tolerance, and this is for the double hull. Go to the online documentation to read about all about this. And we have bridge cuts, edge cuts for the front. So expand, the front has 0 right now. This is 0, meaning that these values do not affect the front at all because it has no section being affected. So we can increase the influence. So back with 2 in the back, it means that 2 hull sections will be affected and is considered as the back section of the ship. Will expand, if we increase this to 1, it means that in front there is one hull section that is considered as the front and is affected by this parameter here. So if we increase the z depth like that, x depth I mean, and then the z depth, that taper of the edge cuts when increase the this doesn't look nice. Okay, so wings. Okay, let's go back to here and mess around with the shape some more. Okay, this looks good. Bump Minimum bump offset is 0.4 and this is 0.6. Then set this to none. This also looks good. Let's try giving it post sub D. Post sub D means that the geometry will have a subdivision modifier when you confirm the operation. Okay, so that just smoothens out the shape. Let's try increasing the subdivision. Okay. So the wings, let's try with the wings. And that is probably the small wing. Let's try it and decrease its tolerance to 0.5. And we can also affect its randomization. I'll just set this to something like 2. The wing count for the large is 4. And right now tolerance is 0.25, meaning that it's more likely to be extruded in the x-axis when the tolerance is lower. And when you increase the value, it will cover more faces towards the z-axis or the y-axis and lower uh, tolerance means that, yeah, it's more likely to be extruded just on the sides, just to keep it more predictable. So the shapes, to keep the shapes more predictable. So as you can see, when I switch, now we're using level 2 and there's a lot of detail, level 2 subdivision. When we switch over to some other tab or section, you can see that uh, there's already a lag switching. So when you want to go back to a quicker method of just playing around with the big shape, then you can just lower the subdivision. So this was good. So this is 107. This is also good. Let's try and go to plating, switch this to 3. And tolerance here means that sharp edges like that, angular, which has sharp transition, the cut will most likely wrap around, or the panel cut will most likely wrap around the sharp angular edge, whereas lower tolerance will just uh, keep on the sides and not really cross over the sharp edge. Okay, so let's use 0.8 and just play around with the settings. So the more you play around with this, the more you're going to get experience using this. Let's get rid of the post sub D. Okay, just 1 for the whole smooth, maybe 0.5 for the subdivision smooth. And this also looks good. Let's try and giving it post sub D. And here, I think we'll go into plating and also play around with the randomization of the shading. So random shading, and you can play around with the random seed here. So it randomizes the shading of the plates or the panel islands into sharp or smooth. So this will actually transmit or translate over to render. So it kind of will offer a variation in the look of the model. We also have triangulate here, which will add more detail. But So F9, let's just switch back to 0. I'm going to show you this. Okay. So auto smooth, if we're using the plating, the base tab and random, this will not affect the mesh. So it will only affect the mesh when we have a none as the limit smooth. But yeah, so this is the same as auto smooth from before. It like defines what edges are going to be smoothed based on the angle here. And triangulation will triangulate the mesh based on the angles of the edges again, much like in auto smooth. So uh, 30 and quantify is 0. Okay, so you can see that it triangulated some of the faces based on the increased a degree or angle. So let's try 90, and it also affects the shape of the model. So uh, it triangulates the mesh and creates in some parts of the mesh creates those it can the face can sometimes uh oh, be like this flat, and then it can sometimes a single face can be like this, and there's a triangle in the middle, for example, and it can go like this in some areas of the mesh and create those detail like that. So that is the purpose of the triangulation, to create um, areas of detail like that in the mesh, and besides the extrusion that's going on. And then we have the quadify. So this qualifies the mesh after the triangulation. 30 degrees. You can see here, it kind of kind of cleans up the mesh a bit after creating those shapes with the triangulation. So just experiment with the setting. And this also looks good. So you can use this actually for creating sword hilts, robot parts. You can use it to create limbs, like this part of the arm and this part of the arm, and also the leg and the upper leg, the lower leg. And you can also use it to create guns as well. I've used it to create guns. So this looks really. So sometimes when you actually confirm this and create and use the operator again, the randomization will be different. So for example, number 147 right here, right now, it looks like this. When you use the operator again and you use the same setting, number 147 will not look like this. So basically the spaceship that you can do here is near infinite, I think. It's also looks good. This is more stable looking design. Oh, the God. Sometimes there's so many shapes, interesting. Once you have uh, honed your settings and you're getting these really beautiful shapes, you can't decide on the actual model that you want because this looks good. This also looks good. This with So I'm going to in the future update, I'm going to try and um, if it can be done and there's not a lot of impact to the speed. I can go like 5 arrays. The result will be arrays. So 5 array and 10 arrays. So I'll experiment with that. Maybe it will. Uh, the problem with that is the speed. So because of the randomization, it's going to randomize this object, then randomize the second grid object, and so on and so forth. So the only problem with that is speed, and I'm going to figure that out once I have the time to go back to Random Starship. Uh, I'm still trying to produce another add-on, so maybe after that or while doing that. And you can see here that we have some really interesting shapes. Oh my god. So how do and it feels like a waste to just because like I said, this is purely random, and when you reuse the operator, you will not get the same result. So once you have this plethora of interesting shapes, it's kind of a waste to actually just use one of them. So that will be the issue of future update. Make sure that at least some of these shapes can actually be reused. Actually, I can do that, but we can do that. But I have an idea. Instead of grids, you can probably use a toggle that when you turn on, this mesh data will not be lost in Blender. You can choose one shape here, but the data will be all those shapes that you have cycled will be kept in memory, and there will be a limit to that memory. Okay, so for example 50 using the operator, and then you can just go to the mesh, or for example this object here, you go to the mesh data and the properties, then you use one of those saved data, and then it switches over to that mesh data. Okay, you get it? I think it's possible, and I think it's much better than the array solution, because the array solution will be affected by speed, and it'll probably crash. Like if you use 5 grids, even just 5 grids, it will probably freeze Blender. So I think the data solution is good. Oh my god, look at this. Look at this baby right here. Let's add post of D. Oh my god. So I'm seeding with the bump. Yes. Let's increase the whole section. Oh, uh, scale. Not the scale. The move. Right. So we're separating it more. Scale interval. Let's use 2. Holy. Most of these shapes are really usable. Okay, let's confirm this and go to edit mode. So you can see here that the islands actually are marked with seams, and because we are using random shading, some are marked sharp and others are not. So those are the soft shaded sections, while the marked sharp edges or the platings with boundaries or marked sharp edges are the ones that are sharp. UV editor, you can directly just UV it after the operation. You get this. It's most of it are good and requires just minor edits from you, but it surely beats, of course, starting from scratch. So most of these lines here are actually the middle part between the platings, and you can just cut this with a seam to break them apart, and then re-UV. You use UV unwrap again. So there's triangles here. Or if you're trying to save time, just use cube projection. Basically, just projects it using this here, this here. So basically, a cube. If you're just trying to save time, but if you want this really uh, UV, you have to unwrap it and make use of the starting mark sharp starting edges with seams marked into them, and use this to actually build the UV map. Okay, so depending on the complexity of your spaceship, sometimes you get a really easy one. But with this, it's really complicated. So you get this. Needs some work, but I guess you're already there, somewhat 40 to 50% there. Okay, so let's try and cubify this cube. And let's go to run flow and extras shading up in materials and use creative flow to assign it, and use we're using UV, so hard the hard one. Okay, and we're going to switch the HDRI something. Okay. And here go to shading and scale this. There you go. Now we need something to actually, let me just save this spaceship demo. Okay. Now we need a base color, and we're going to introduce that using random flow and random vertex color. Just gradations of black and white and go sharp. So this already has those mark sharp edges, so you don't need to use mark sharp. And we're going to just cycle the values here, or the seed value, and then use this for the color. Input, you have to have node wrangler for this menu to appear, and use vertex color. This is the vertex color group that is made using the random vertex color operator, and connect this to that instead of the RGB. And we're going to control its intensity again using the overlay mix node, and set this factor to 1, and you can control the intensity using this one. The advantage of this compared to using color ramp is that you can control the intensity of the color of colored. If you're using color, you can control its intensity, whereas if you're using color ramp, those colors will be uh, transformed into black and white. And let's just try and use something like 0.025 or not 0.01 or 0.02. There we go. Okay, and you can model the starship. The add-on, however, cannot randomize the proper looking exhaust, so you have to do that yourself. Okay. Let's try and make some lights. Mission 10, and here probably set this to Okay, I think 300 is good. 0.04 and randomize using the offset. Change the color, change the saturation. There we go. Okay, and we have a spaceship. Then we can actually use what's in here. We can just use pre-select, select the shape faces here, and then use something like random cells, individual depths, increase the subdivision to make the faces thinner, and reduce their number, something like 5 or 10. Whoa, I click on percentage. Okay, so this I accidentally clicked on percentage with the high subdivision number, so it probably crashed or freezed Blender. So that's unfortunate. I'd have to reopen it, close the window, and reopen Blender. Okay, let's reopen it, and hopefully the recover last session. It's gone. Okay, spaceship demo still here, but we've lost the random shading. Okay, the vertex color and the emission, then saturation, and this is 0.04. Play around with the offset and get that back. Now we need to do the vertex color, random vertex color, no color, use sharp, and just use that and reattach it. Okay, probably should have saved before using the random operator. And control the intensity using overlay. Okay, there we go. Let's try and change up get a more dramatic lighting using the HDRI. Okay, there we go. And let's reuse the add-on, for select add-on and random flow. So this time, avoid the mistake that we made. Random cells, this one here, and individual pool number, do not touch percentage, and set this to something like 10. Then control the depth. So this is just to break the silhouette of the model. If it doesn't look good, we could just remove it. So with the source object, if the source object has a material, then the random flow result will copy that. Probably should use a higher depth value. You can render this and watch the result. So this depends on this. You can render and use use the operator, but just watch out if you have a lower end PC. Don't do this. full seed. There we go. We're just going to delete the ones that we don't like using quick select. Control Shift F and delete. So ones that have twisted geometries. One here. Okay. Oops. You're supposed to pick on the geometry side. Okay, so that just breaks up the silhouette in some angles. Look at especially in this view, for example, and we can try it again using this part. Increase the sharpness threshold and reuse the operator. Probably set this to 10. Let's view it rendered. Okay, that's good. Just to add, and as you can see, it's just to add those. The spiky things are just meant to break up the profile. And I actually learned this in the old macros or robotic shows. Remember those Symmetry ships? They have those spikes that break up the monotony because the Symmetry ships doesn't really have that much angle to them. They're pretty much smooth and long, and the only way to break the profile is to have those really long spikes. And that's the idea of using random cells in a spaceship. And let's try and create a sphere here. Okay, and set it here like that. And then cursor selected. Uh, Set origin to the cursor, and then we're going to mirror this in the x-axis, and then probably smooth this just to make it look smooth. And materials, add materials, uh, image, emit, just rename it emit, and we're going to change the default shader into emission. Emission. Okay, and set it to 50. And then we're going to add more effect in the viewport. Let's try setting the using the emission layer here and go to compositing. Going to remove this. Oops. Remove this, and then add a glare node. Glare. We're going to use the. We're going to activate the compositor in the viewport. And again, depending on your machine, this can add substantial footprint, processing footprint. So be careful. Set this to always. And we're going to is the let's just try and render this. So you won't see the render window because my OBS capture only captures the main window blender. And let's try rendered. So it doesn't do the streaks. Camera doesn't do the. It worked before, but right now doesn't work anymore. It's supposed to look like that in the viewport. Maybe material preview. There we go. Not rendered, but material preview. Oh, there you go. It crashed. Okay, there you go. Maybe don't do that. Oh my God, it crashed. So there we have it, our spaceship. You can save this in the asset browser and just drag and drop it to your scene as a background model, or as you can also render this close up. You might have to add more details to make it more convincing close up. But mid range and long range, as you can see, this is more than enough to be convincing. Okay, thinking. So yeah, that's Random Starship, and we have reverted back to using the horizontal layout. I will do more of Random Starship and also Creative Flow because I'm probably doing too much Random Flow videos, so I will be also doing more videos of the other add-ons and just using them for practical purposes or fun projects. Okay, so that is it for this video. If you have any questions, use the comment section below or the links in the description. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.